Hey gang, Ronan here. As you can see, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Francesco Ferruccio, and it is a ship that I think is really fun to play. Now that's not to say that it's overpowered, it's just fun. Now why do I say that? Well, there are a couple things. I'll show you my commander spec and the modules that I use on the ship and stuff here in a minute, but I wanted to give you kind of the particulars from here in the game. So you can see that the armor the armor is nothing to speak about, right? It's basically a DD with a big citadel, and I mean a big citadel. Let's take a look here. That. There we go. We don't need that either. Okay, so essentially that is the section of your ship where you can eat citadel damage. Now, the front, which I showed you, 16 millimeters. That's not going to really matter down there. 16 millimeters. So things from the front, things from the back are going to punch right through that. And you've only got, well, 16 down here and 52 millimeters here. So you're going to eat big damage if you get hit. So you have to avoid getting hit at all costs. Now, that it's if that was the only thing I was going to tell you, of course, I couldn't recommend this ship at all. But there are a few other things to consider that, at least for me, make this thing a blast to play. Now, the base hit points are not quite this good. I'm going to go ahead and show you the modules and stuff that well, you know what, before I do that, as it is spec'd, 31,550 HP. The guns, 11-second reload, which really isn't all that great. 13-second, 180-degree turn time on the turrets, which is pretty decent, with a max dispersion at 17.5 kilometers of only 143 meters. They are really, really accurate guns. Max HE shell damage, 2,310 per shell, with a 7% chance of a fire and 25 millimeters of armor pen capability. Now, you're going to, if you're up tiered, you're going to need to hit the superstructure if you're using HE in order to do any damage, unless you're just planning to count on fires, which, maybe you can do that. Take a look at that initial shell velocity, 995 meters per second. Yeah, these things are lasers. Now, drop down one more section there, and you see the 152 millimeter, what is it, Proiettili, semi-armor piercing shells with a max damage of 4,235 per shell and 42 millimeters of pen capacity. So, yeah, you can do a little bit of damage with these things. Now, it was tempting to consider secondaries because you've got such great concealment on this thing. I think you can get it down, if you spec for it, to like 8.8 kilometer detection range. But these secondaries just aren't really that strong. Even if you spec'd into them, at least in my opinion, and I thought about it just for memes, right? But I opted not to because you've only got a 5.9 kilometer range. You can extend that by 20% twice, but that's still only going to get you 8 point something kilometers, right? So the range just isn't there, and really you don't want to get close in this thing because it is just one gigantic floating citadel. Torpedoes, well, if you can land one, they hit pretty hard. 13,900 damage, 13.5 kilometer range, which is really good. But they're really slow, 56 knots. So in a lot of cases, you are going to say, well, here's where I think the ship is going to go, so I'll put the torpedoes there. And they're going to maneuver 4 or 5 times, maybe more than that, by the time the torpedoes get there, because they move essentially at the sound of smell. Depth charges, nothing to write home about there. AA defense, again, well, I think most of you who have been paying attention to my videos at all know what I think about AA and the current state of that in the game. Max speed, 36.5 knots. Now, that's not too shabby. And a really decent turning radius, right? 620 meters. That's really nice. But, we'll take a look at what was compared to Holland. 660, Trump. 720, Yager. 670, Gearing. 640, right? 620 meters. So what does that mean? Well, it means if you get yourself in a tight spot, you can usually maneuver your way out of it by using the smoke that you have on this ship. And it is the rolling smoke. You can be at full speed, hit your smoke, and poof, you just vanish. So you can see there the detectability range by sea, 9.9 kilometers. By air, 6.3 kilometers. And of course, assured detection at 2 kilometers. Now, let's get into the way that I spec'd the ship. I wanted to keep the main batteries going, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that right now. You've only got 2 turrets, right? You got one here fore and one here aft, both with 4 barrels. If you want to use both, you have to show a lot of side. You can see that the angles here are not all that great. I'd say it's probably right around there that you're able to get the guns out. So if you're using both guns, you're taking a lot of chances. Now, if you're far away, which with the kind of range that these things have, you can do. And because of the accuracy of these guns, you can really make it work. I'm going to show you a video replay of literally the first game that I played in this thing, and I was so happy about it that I said, you know what, I got to go in and I got to show people how I built this thing and why, and have that run before the game starts so people can understand why I like this ship so much. Okay, so we'll get back to equipment. So I want to keep my main turrets in decent shape, and the torpedo tubes want to limit the risk of incapacitation there. I mean, the choices here are not great. I went with damage control here. And on the third slot, aiming systems mod 1 to decrease the shell dispersion by 7%. These things are phenomenally accurate. I mean, they really are. And here I used steering gears mod 1 because at the ranges that I'm going to try and be working with this ship, this to me is more important than being able to accelerate quickly. I want to be able to dodge. So that's why I chose this. And I think you're going to see some examples of that in the video that I'm going to show you of the replay. Now, I didn't even have any signals on the ship when I played it. I just said, well, you know what, I'm going to play a game and just see how it handles. And I was so happy with it. Okay, so I've got Luigi Sansonetti, and I haven't actually got him set up yet with 21 points. You can see it's at 19. But I'm not really sure I needed it, so I didn't really hurry. And all right, so grease the gears. I want to be able to get the guns around in a pinch. Now, why, if you're going to stay at long range, would you need that? Well, because occasionally there's going to be situations where toward the end of the game, maybe you have a DD or a sub that you got to handle. And I wanted to be able to get these guns to turn. I also took heavy HE and SAP shells, which increases the HE and SAP shell damage by 10%. Now, you take a hit on the detectability of your ship by 15%, right? That's what puts it at 9.9. But when you combine that with the concealment expert, it's not really that bad, you know. So you do end up under 10 kilometers this way for your spotting by sea, your detection by sea. I use Adrenaline Rush, which of course speeds up your weapon systems considerably depending upon how much damage you may have taken. Consumable Enhancement, which really just, it keeps the smoke going a little bit longer, which I find valuable. That's one that I may swap out. There are a couple of others here that, you know, may make more sense long term, but that's where I started. I wanted to increase the number of consumables that I have. Instead of 2 smokes, now I have 3, and I did increase the HP on the ship by 450 hit points per ship tier. So that's how I set up the ship. Really fun. The replay is forthcoming. Thanks a lot for watching this, and I hope you enjoyed the replay. Okay, gang, now let's get into the actual gameplay. Taking a look at the matchmaking, it's decent. You know, I'm mid-tier in this game. And, you know, there are a couple of things that, you know, really stood out immediately. One is that you've only got 1 destroyer on each team, and on the red team it's a Farragut, so there's not really much in the way of torpedo threat from destroyers. Farragut's more of a gunboat, unless it gets really close. And I couldn't help thinking that if it gets close to this ship with these sap shells, it's just going to get shredded. The U-69, well, subs are always a threat at pretty much any tier. But, you know, there are 3 caps, and it's only going to be able to cover one area. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and push right into the cap. It may be that I'll end up embarrassed and, and get lapped in the first 3 minutes, because there is a CV on the red team, of course, and if it spots me early, and Umahari or Hawk or even Scharnhorst or Leon catch me with big shells, I may not be long for this world in this game anyway, because 31,550 HP, it's not a lot. One good battleship volley could take me right out of the game, but this would be a great test. Now, one thing that you're probably aware of is that very often on this map, CVs will, instead of coming to the center, which does happen, but I think happens more often when they can see that there are speedy DDs on the other team, they will head for one or the other of the flank caps and then cross center. Now, I'm hoping to get a shot over the edge of the island, because usually that's where things are going to be showing up. And there's the Catalunya. Okay, got the shots away, and landed 5 against an angled light cruiser. I'm feeling pretty good about that. Got a broadside Miyoko. We'll see what get anything there. You can see I slowed down to avoid what I knew would be coming, which is shots from that Scharnhorst and all those battleships sitting back there. Slowed down and smoked up, and I'm trying to narrow my profile. And now, who's going to get the last shot of Miyoko? Okay, looks like he's going to be turning. I put the shot where I think the ship's going to be when the shells arrive, and got a little help, but I was able to finish him off. Yeah, whatever that guy said. Now, as you saw, the smokes don't last very long, so they are, at least to my mind, primarily to get you out of hot water and allow you the chance to escape. Fortunately, I was positioned behind an island. I was able to use that for cover. 4,600 HP. And our Synop finishes off the Catalunya. Does get off an AP shot, but I angled, and you do have that strip of better armor, and against something like that, it is possible to get some of those things to just slide right on the side of your ship. Go ahead and put a shot out. I think Grab Zeppelin has me plainly visible, but I could see Umahari was aimed elsewhere. That really hurt. Okay, so one CV air attack, and I lost a little over a quarter of my HP. So this ship is, it's not one that you want to.
Reporting a target position.
You want to put in harm's way very much. You've got to use cover and use your smoke. And right around this point, when I see the torpedo bombers coming in, I was thinking, oh, this might have been a really bad idea, because I've still got 73 seconds until the smoke comes back up. I'm just trying to secure the cap, and the CV head the other way. I imagine his teammates, where I'm looking right now, were not too happy about that. They were probably hungry to finish me off. Now, I do land 3 torpedoes in there, one on, I'm imagining, the Leon, and then 2 more. And I don't know whether those were on one of the Scharnhorst or one of each of the Scharnhorst. I just know that it's time for me to beat feet and get out of here. Now, I've got smoke back up in 33 seconds. But I need to make sure I don't get spotted here. I can see the CV's got bombers coming this way. So I go ahead and put a shot out. Why? Because the Leon had his guns aimed elsewhere. Get those torpedoes out. 13 seconds until I've got smoke again. He wasn't aimed at me. I'm just making sure I was lined up there. And here come those bombers. I'm going to accelerate to give myself as much time as possible, because I've got smoke in 1 second.
Generatore di fumo
Just change the
avviato.
line because he's on a line already. Hope that he'll miss, and he did. So I just changed the angle of my ship. If I hadn't turned, that probably would have landed on the back half of my ship. And I'll see if I can't help a little bit against the Lion.
Rilasciata cortina
So
fumogena.
we're almost 6 minutes in. I've got 66,000 in damage. Of course, most of that came from the 3 torpedoes, but I was able to push in, secure a cap, and now I'm doing, yeah, it's just ship damage, but I'm helping with the Lion, and Tone finishes them off. All right, so the good guys have secured the Alpha cap, the Bravo cap, and almost half of the red team is gone. Umahari on the red team finishes off our Pensacola. We're down 2 ships. The red team is down 5. And I think, at this point in the game, I was just thinking, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just engage. I'm tempted because you can see that the red circle around my ship on the minimap, it's got pretty decent range for a tier 7 cruiser. So I decide I'm going to engage. I'm just going to see what I can do. Right now, the Scharnhorst is engaged with the Sinop anyway. And the torpedoes aren't going to have the range, so I don't have to worry about them. They're gone. Scharnhorst is going to turn broadside. Now this is something to be aware of. I mean, you can engage like this. I've got 99 seconds until the smoke comes back up. You can engage like this. But these sap shells, while they will do chip damage, they're not going to be doing the big damage against heavily armored ships. Which, I was just still learning the ship. You can see I really accelerated there, and I'm seeing all of the red ships that are coming out of the Charlie cap now and realizing I'm going to have to turn here in a second. Because I'm going to get shots from Balti, I'm going to get shots from Hawk, Umahari. I'm trying to finish off that Scharnhorst, but there's a pretty big shot. So time to turn. And I'm just creating more distance as our Shokaku finishes off their Scharnhorst. Couple shells land and I'm down to 10,000 HP. Now I have to say, while this was not what I would call a close game, it was, as is unfortunately all too often these days, a real blowout. But I think it does kind of highlight what this ship is great at. It's got good accuracy, although that wasn't all that great. Good accuracy at pretty long range. And it can do, pretty decent damage. Now, if we subtract what damage was done with the torpedoes, it's of course much less.
Abbiamo distrutto un incrociatore nemico.
Now, this actually gives you a pretty decent idea of the accuracy of the guns. Now, the Farragut was wiggling a lot here. He did a pretty good job of translocating heavy fire. Now, why did I smoke? Well, because Umahari is out there, and I didn't want to become a target. Now, I thought about crossing in front of the Tone, but I thought, no, if I do, and the Umahari puts a shot out on him, I'm liable to get between the 2 of them and end up getting blapped myself. So I turned and went wide of the Tone. Umahari now is at a point where I'm not sure he can even put shells on me, so I'm going to go ahead and keep putting shots out on the Farragut. And so, 12 kilometers out, I'm still able to put decent shots out on the Farragut. And he's wiggling, doing all he can, but that was just a whiff. He's turning into the Visteris now. And that should do it. And does. No torpedo threat. He's too far away for his torps to to get this far out. And this game's all over. You know, they've got a Sharni, a Hawk, and a Yumahari left. Farragut burned down our Vesteris. So we're down 4 ships. The red team is down 9. Again, not a close game. It does kind of highlight the strengths of the ship. You got great accuracy, pretty hard hitting sap shells for a light cruiser. Just see if I could get the rear gun shells over. Nope. Hawk finishes our Mogami. We're down 5 ships now, but I mean, our Bismarck hasn't even been scratched, so we're in pretty good shape here. And I'm going to just put shells into the side of the Yumahari, see what I can do. Tried to aim high enough so that they would do some big damage. 72-25. Aim a little bit lower this time, and we'll see what it does there. Just need to do a little. And it does. And that's pretty much the game.
Corazzata nemica affondata.
So, super fun ship. If you picked it up and you were kind of wondering about how to play it, you know, I'm not saying that the way that I played it or the way that I set it up is the way to do it. Only that I found it very fun, which you can see there in the comment that I made in the chat box. It's not going to be a ship that I probably play every day, but it is fun. It's kind of challenging, but it's an enjoyable experience to play the ship. All right, let's take a look at the numbers. Okay, landed the 3 torpedo hits. We'll get into the damage about that here in a minute. 98 shots on target, 7 aircraft shot down, finished off 4 ships. I certainly didn't do all that damage, but did finish them off. Picked up the Bravo cap early. Came in second on the team. Yumahari finished first. Excuse me. 2268. That's I think respectable for. I think that was maybe my first game in the ship. Detailed report. You can see I put damage on quite a few different things, and I'm going to pause it here for just a second, and we'll take a look at this kind of in detail. 98 shells, 59,000 damage, let's call it. So really not bad. I mean, these shells are, I think they're reasonably effective for what you're using it, which is a light cruiser, a tier 7 light cruiser. 31,500 on the 3 torpedo hits. A little bit of flooding damage here, and you know, a little spotting, a little over 500,000 potential damage. Overall, I think pretty decent. One of the things that I would really highly recommend is when you're using the smoke to use it primarily to escape. Because if you're using it to farm, the smokes don't last very long. And even though your detection radius is great, depending upon how you set it up, it could even be better. If a destroyer or a sub has you spotted, big shells will just, as you saw, they'll just wreck you. And that is a painful experience that could send you quickly back to port. Okay, so we're going to speed through this now. Decent XP primarily because I was using some bonuses. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to see them below. If you enjoyed the video, I hope you will like. And if you haven't yet, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.